But I'm also just going to address a couple of wider questions for people who've not been to any of our sessions, because I want to provide this to a number of people who've asked me why we should worry about mindfulness in the workplace. And I think that's a really, really good question, and I want to try and answer it. So as everybody knows who's met me, I'm absolutely passionate about mindfulness, and at the end of this time together today, we'll actually do a practice. I won't record that, but just to set the scene, I thought I'd introduce what I'm calling the ABC of mindfulness. And I've used this idea of ABC because mindfulness is so often associated with mental health and stress, anxiety, and depression. And I wanted to think particularly about mindfulness in relationship to the work that we do, which is usually pretty full on. It's usually using a lot of computers and a lot of meetings and a lot of hustle and bustle. And what do we mean by mindfulness? How do we use mindfulness? And particularly, how do we reconcile this idea of shutting our eyes and going inside of ourselves? Because that's what most mindfulness practice looks like. So it kind of looks like we just sit there doing nothing with our eyes shut. And that's pretty difficult to do when you work in an open plan office. Of course, if you're working from home, maybe you have a bit more opportunity to take some time out and actually shut your eyes and go inside of yourself. But my reckoning is that most people don't do that. So I wanted to talk about mindfulness on the go in pretty much the same way as in the book Coaching on the Go. We talk about how we need to learn to coach and build our relationships on the go. So I am trying to use ABC to think about mindfulness on the go. So the first A of ABC is automatic. And most of you have heard me talk about how we can be participating in our life, but we're not actually there. The usual example we give is getting in our car, driving somewhere, like going to the supermarket or driving to work or driving to our best friend's house. And because we do it all the time and we do it often, our mind goes into la la land, and we don't even have to focus particularly on what we're doing. We probably maintain enough focus to make sure we don't have an accident or run over our next door neighbor or something. But actually we divert most of our mental attention to daydreaming or problem solving or listening to the radio or getting involved in a discussion with our children in the back seat. So we have a way of sort of subdividing our consciousness, subdividing our attention, and some of our attention is on the road, but most of our attention is actually elsewhere. And in the office, this applies all the time. So I don't know if you go to sales teams meetings or just product development team meetings or any sort of meetings where you turn up fairly regularly with somebody, the same group of people there all the time, and they are going through a pretty common agenda, and you have the opportunity to go into la la land and not pay attention. Or what usually happens, just like driving a car, we assign 10% of our cognitive resources to listening, tuning into the meeting, but we're off thinking about the rest of our day. We're thinking about our next client call, or we're thinking about the most recent email we've had. So we're on automatic and we're not fully attending in those meetings. And that also happens to us when we're walking down the corridor and we see colleagues and we say g'day or hi, how are you? And we're not really fully paying attention. And the thing that mindfulness has really helped me to understand is the price that I pay for being on automatic. Often people think it's a very efficient way of working because they think they're multitasking. And I often will kid myself as well that I've got so much to do that while I'm in a meeting, I should be sort of secretly writing my to-do list or secretly sort of thinking about planning the next thing I'm going to do. And obviously the price that I pay for that is that I miss things. I miss things all the time. And particularly in meetings with colleagues where I have the opportunity to be collegiate, be collaborative, be cooperative, find themes or find linkages between what they're doing and what I'm doing, and I miss them. So the A of automatic, or coming off automatic and being attentive, is really important. The second part of mindfulness for me is B, and I've called this bull in a china shop. So anybody who knows me knows that I'm just blasting my way through life. You know, I'm an A-type personality, whatever that is, but I'm full of energy. I'm always trying to do something more or extra or better or different or whatever it is, I'm after it. And the tragedy of this is that I'm actually kind of burning myself out. A lot of the time, my battery is running down and I don't even know it. And because I am on automatic and I'm a bull in a china shop, I'm not fully paying attention to how I need to renew or revive or re-energize myself. And I'm not taking enough time to think about, for example, when do I need to go fast? When do I need to go moderately fast? And when do I need to go slow? And when do I need to stop? And one of the big questions that mindfulness allows me to ask myself is, can it wait? Or could I go slower? Do I really need to do this today, tomorrow, this week? And it's absolutely surprising to me. And every time I ask myself this question, I find that there are 100 things on my to-do list that don't need to be done today. And they don't need to be done tomorrow. And they don't need to be done this week. So it's absolutely amazing to me when I stop being a bull in a china shop, that I can actually have a better way of looking at my priorities. And I can actually make sure that I do strategic work, strategic thinking. I make time for it because I'm not trying to get to the next thing just to get it off my to-do list. So great examples from the office for me are, I'll read an email too fast and I'll miss critical detail. And Phil, my co-author, is really good at pointing out to me that I've missed something. And it's really because I have this bull in a china shop attitude. So I often now make myself go back to an email and reread it. And sometimes reading it once, leaving a space, and then leaving and then reading it the second time, I really get much more information from it, and I can literally read between the lines. So slowing down and doing things right and not doing them fast is really important and comes directly from my mindfulness. And then there's the C of mindfulness, which is controlling. And the thing that I've really learned is that we are trying to control the wrong things. I was really struck by this through the Olympic Games, and it does apply in the work situation as well, but the Olympics really demonstrated this. There is some fantastic research on mindfulness and how it helps elite athletes achieve just a 5% increase in their performance, and 5% when you're an elite athlete, that's really huge. And what they're teaching athletes is that you don't need to be in this optimal state. So in the past, we taught athletes, or we didn't, I didn't, others taught athletes that to get the very peak of your performance, you needed to have an optimal state in your mind and in your body. And what they realized is that athletes were then expending energy trying to optimize their internal state. And that was energy that needed to go into performance. And again, it's a bit like that automatic. They've spent resources, they've spent energy, cognitive resources on trying to optimize themselves to get themselves in this state of flow. What they're now teaching athletes is that they cannot deny nature. You know, if you've woken up on the wrong side of the bed, if you're slightly tired, if you're slightly grumpy, if you're slightly out of sorts, if it's raining and you plan to be outside today, you know, sort of spending time and energy on trying to optimize that is a waste of time. And actually learning how to work with whatever is with you, learning to work with whatever you've got is so super important. So we cannot impose our will on nature. That's our nature and also the nature that surrounds us. And how this shows up for me is I'll often sit down at the end of the day and I'll ask myself, or I'll spontaneously say, it was a good or a bad day at the office. And I've really come to understand that good and bad days at the office are a construction. They're a construction of my belief that I should be optimizing my day at the office, you know, that somehow a day in the office should look a particular way. And that's not true. A day in the office is going to look all sorts of ways. And I don't need to expend time or energy or resources on thinking about whether it was a good or bad day. This is just how life is. So that's the framing for our practice today, and I'm going to stop the recording so we can do some practice, and we're going to work around those three things, the ABC of mindfulness. Today we are going to do it with eyes closed, but as I hope I've begun to demonstrate, there are sort of eyes open ways of bringing mindfulness into the office that don't require us to do meditation, but they do require us to use our consciousness in a very particular way. Okay, so let me just